We spent 3 days in Krakow and half of the best experiences were completely free. Medieval squares that look like movie sets, castle grounds you can explore, and yes, the world's most famous Holocaust memorial, Auschwitz-Birkenau, is just an hour away. We began where most do, in Krakow's medieval center. At 40,000 square meters, this is one of the largest medieval town squares in Europe. The entire Old Town is UNESCO-listed because it's one of the best preserved on the continent. And for Europhiles, this is exactly what one pictures when imagining a typical European town. Cobblestone streets, classical architecture, horse-drawn carriages, and yes, an abundance of pigeons. Overlooking the square is the accidentally whimsical St. Mary's Basilica. If you look closely, the two towers are at different heights. A popular legend claims two brothers were commissioned to build them, and jealousy led one to murder the other, then kill himself in guilt. Reality is probably less dramatic, but the story has stuck around for centuries. Inside the basilica, the highlight is this enormous 15th century altarpiece, one of the most impressive of its kind. And that's the thing about these really old cathedrals. Even after seeing almost 100 of them, St. Mary's Basilica still made us feel like we were somewhere really special. Then, running through the center of the square is the Cloth Hall, a long building that served as the city's main trading hall in the Middle Ages. Merchants from across Europe sold cloth and other goods here, and you can still see coats of arms painted on the ceilings honoring Polish regional identity. Today, the ground floor is lined with stores selling souvenirs and local crafts. And if you're a fan of colored rocks, the Cloth Hall is full of shops selling amber. That's because Krakow sat on a major trade route and amber passed through the city for centuries, being part of local commerce. And of course, we had to see the entrance to this beautiful old city. St. Florian's Gate is this Gothic 14th century tower, and the only remaining medieval gate around. It leads to the Kraków Barbican, a 15th century fortress designed to protect said gate. By this point, the old town quickly became one of our favorite old towns in Europe. It's easy to walk around, and there's always something interesting to see, from street art tucked into alleyways to buskers performing in the squares. But just when it all starts to feel like a beautiful postcard, they've installed a giant head to keep you on your toes. And this is where I have to warn you, there will be donut shops tempting you at every turn, and you should just let them win. Pączki are traditional Polish donuts, and we bought one to share. It was sweet and delicious, but probably inched us closer to diabetes. For lunch, we found ourselves some pierogis, a popular Polish food. I might catch some flack for saying this, but they're quite similar to Chinese dumplings, but also different in texture and taste. A 10-minute walk uphill took us to Wawel Castle, the crown jewel of Krakow. The complex was built and rebuilt over many centuries, so parts of it look different from the rest. This gives it a really unique look. You can freely walk the open areas around the castle and cathedral without paying a thing, which was what a lot of people seem to do. The famous Renaissance courtyard is one of the most photographed spots, with its 3 levels of arcades, decorative columns, and friezes. Walking along sections of the outer walls also gave sweeping views over the city and river. Another Krakow icon is the Wawel Dragon, a mythical creature said to have lived in a cave beneath the hill. This statue actually breathes real fire every 5 minutes or so, which excited us a lot more than we care to admit. By now, we were next to the Vistula River, and because riverside views aren't enough, the path also features handprints from famous people. Some of them aren't Polish though, which makes you wonder what was the selection criteria. Heading back into town for dinner, we wanted to try eating at a Polish milk bar. These inexpensive, no-frills canteens grew in popularity in the 1950s after the war, but are dying out now. We didn't find the food particularly cheap, but they are comparatively cheaper than eating at a restaurant. Most people know Krakow for its Old Town, but they may not know its Jewish Quarter played a central role in World War II history. So the next morning, we join a walking tour through Kazimierz, the Jewish ghetto. Our guide started us at the Empty Chairs Memorial. It's here where Jews were assembled for deportation to concentration camps. The chairs represent the furniture and belongings they have brought with them but were told to leave behind. It's heavy stuff, and to get across the square, you're forced to walk among them, confronting the raw tragedy of what happened here. Some people have left small stones, following the Jewish custom of placing stones on graves rather than flowers. A few days ago, we had watched Schindler's List, largely set in Kazimierz, so the movie was still fresh in our minds. We also saw places where certain scenes were filmed, including this famous courtyard and staircase. Top on our list was also to visit the Schindler's Factory Museum. This is the real factory that Oskar Schindler ran during the German occupation. He employed and protected over 1,200 Jewish workers, ultimately saving them from death camps by declaring them essential workers. Walking through the same offices and corridors where these events unfolded was a special experience. After a few hours on confronting all of this history, we needed to take a breath, and honestly, we needed to eat. We could have eaten at one of the many restaurants in Kazimierz, but we headed straight to Plac Nowy instead. Here, you'll find Zapiekanka, the undisputed king of Polish street food. Bread, cheese, bacon, mayonnaise, it's hard to go wrong. We walked back to town that evening, still feeling the weight of the ghetto's past. And it wasn't over, as we'll be confronting Poland's darkest chapter the very next day. We had booked a tour that took us from Krakow to Auschwitz. We were visiting the largest Nazi concentration and extermination camp, where over 1.1 million people were murdered. It began in 1940 as a concentration camp primarily for Polish political prisoners, intellectuals, resistance members, and others deemed enemies of the Nazi regime. From 1942 onward, it became the largest extermination center in the Nazi system, where mass murder was industrialized using gas chambers and crematoriums. Auschwitz I is the original camp with the infamous Arbeit gate, as well as the first experimental gas chamber. There's also a museum housed inside several of the original brick barracks, featuring original artifacts collected after the camp's liberation in January 1945. We saw tens of thousands of shoes and bags that once belonged to people deported to the camp. But one of the more chilling exhibits was a room of hair, made from hair shaved from the prisoners. A short bus ride took us to the second site. Auschwitz-Birkenau is the largest part, with 4 gas chambers where the majority of killings occurred. We also saw the train platform where deportees from all over the country arrived. From here, guards would select people, deciding immediately who would be sent to forced labor and who would be sent straight to the gas chambers. There was also a dormitory showing how bad conditions were, where up to 7 people would share a bare wooden bed with no blankets for warmth, even in winter. As you can imagine, only a fixed number of people are allowed to visit Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial and Museum at one time. A time slot must be booked and places are limited each day. To save us the hassle, for around $50 per person, we booked a day tour that included round-trip transport, tickets, and a paid guide for both sides. However, entry to Auschwitz is actually free, and you can go in without a guide if you're willing to deal with all the logistics and planning. We felt having a guide helped to add important context and bring some of the stories to life in a meaningful way. And if you're coming all the way here, then it's worth a guided trip. If you have more time in Krakow, I highly recommend checking out the Jagiellonian University. Founded in 1364, it's one of the oldest universities that's still running today. It's basically a time capsule of university life in the Middle Ages. In fact, Copernicus once studied here. You know, the astronomer who caused a scandal with his theory that the Earth revolves around the Sun? At the Jagiellonian University Museum, you can walk through preserved rooms, lecture halls, and objects showing how scholars studied and taught long ago. Highlights include rare 16th century astronomical instruments, along with sundials, telescopes, and microscopes. The Jagiellonian Globe is the most famous exhibit, dating around 1510. It's one of the oldest surviving globes in the world, showing the newly discovered American continent. During World War II, Jagiellonian University wasn't spared by the Nazis either. Many of its professors were arrested and sent to concentration camps, and the campus has some exhibits surrounding this dark period too. The best part? Wednesday afternoons are free entry, which is amazing for what you get. Krakow surprised us in the best way. After 2 months in Eastern Europe, we expected to feel a little worn down, but instead found a city that got us excited all over again. Another city that really impressed us was Budapest. Its mix of grand architecture, thermal baths, and riverside views made our time there feel cinematic. Click the video on screen right now and I'll see you there.